Well, Mark O'Connell has travelled widely to meet aspiring transhumanists for his new book on the subject, and he joins me now. It's been an eternal obsession. Why is that?
Well, yeah, I mean, it goes back to, as you say, at least as far as Gilgamesh. And I think transhumanism comes from a similar place as all the major religions, which is this sort of dissatisfaction with the fact that we are in these sort of fleshy human bodies and we die. And you say, why is that? I suppose it's difficult to accept the fact that we die. We've always been sort of uncomfortable with it, understandably.
But do you think in the next century or two it's going to be enough to be human, or will humans actually be second-class citizens?
Well, this is sort of one of the central ideas of the transhumanist movement, this idea that we have to sort of merge with technology or become obsolete. I think part of the sort of thinking of the movement comes from, I think, an over-identification with machines. This sort of idea that we're already machines and that we have to become more sophisticated machines.
But now it's been taken one stage further because, of course, in a way, fiction then led to a lot, and sci-fi led to a lot of almost scientific research. But there's now organisations that are spending millions trying to cheat mortality. Were you surprised at the extent of that?
Yeah, I mean, I knew this stuff was there, and then I investigated, and I kept seeing Peter Thiel's money again and again. Peter Thiel is involved in an awful lot of this stuff, and so is Elon Musk, obviously, with his announcement during the week about neural lace. So
what kind of experimentation did you come across?
Well, I spent some time with a guy called Randall Cohen, who his entire life's work has been trying to figure out how to upload minds to machines. So we're talking about sort of mapping the neurons, mapping the brain to such a degree of detail and granularity that it can be transferred to what they call another substrate. So the idea is that this body, although this is how we live and what we live in right now, our minds can sort of theoretically at least be transferred to a different substrate, and we could live as robots or as sort of disembodied beings.
Calling our minds down from the cloud somewhere.
Yeah, essentially.
Is that what whole brain emulation is?
That's whole brain emulation, that's the idea, yeah.
Not that I know anything, but that just sounds exactly what you were writing about in your book, was this idea that we can actually... But then how would our brains continue to develop and grow? They would just be uploaded every so often.
Well, the idea is that we would merge with artificial intelligence, that we would sort of reach another evolutionary leap by sort of merging with super intelligent AI.
Right, but the other one that I thought was another one that's quite advanced now already is biohacking. I hadn't realised to the extent that people actually do their own biohacking.
Yeah, and this is a sort of an element of the transhumanist movement. They call themselves practical transhumanists or biohackers because they're doing this stuff already. They're kind of designing technologies for implanting under the skin. So I spent a while in Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania with these guys called Grindhouse Wetware, who call themselves cyborgs, and they build these sort of quite grotesquely large implants and put them in themselves to give themselves superhuman
But they do, so these implants that go in,
yeah,
they can trigger an extreme movement of their arm already or do something?
Well, the capabilities right now are fairly primitive in that they would allow them to do things like sense magnetic north, or with a gesture open the door of a laboratory or a car or whatever. So it's stuff that you could quite easily do with technology that you wouldn't have to have invasive surgery for. But the idea is that it's sort of a gesture towards the post-human future, the cyborg future.
But at the moment, this is a kind of rich man's game in many ways, and you wonder whether or not, if it does develop, if there are progressions that do mean that people can live in different ways and live longer, then it's going to be a societal imbalance in favour of the people that can afford to do it.
Right. Well, this is kind of one of the major dimensions of my book, is that I sort of see transhumanism as a very sort of extreme intensification of tendencies that are already there in capitalism in terms of things like wealth inequality. And if you look at the sort of the research into life extension technologies and these kinds of things, I think the people who are going to benefit from it are clearly the super rich. So you're looking at some pretty sort of radical socioeconomic implications there.
But you're also looking at the idea that we won't die when we're meant to die. I mean, there are people that think they can perhaps live for 1,000 years, and we're just going to have an overpopulation of the planet, even more than we have at the moment.
Not if we're all uploaded to the cloud, because we won't be physically present.
So you've got to be uploaded to the cloud. Would you ever consider, in the future, would it be something that would be interesting to you to be uploaded to the cloud? No,
not right now. Maybe when I get to 85 or whatever, I might.
Mark O'Connell, thank you very much indeed.